Hey everybody, welcome to Snow Talk. This is Wave 3 News meteorologist Brian Good in for Kevin Harnett again on this Christmas week, and we are tracking a very dynamic system. We're going to talk about that and whether or not we'll get any snow out of this system, and we'll talk about the longer term, as we always do on Snow Talk. We always look at the model data down the road, and I'll let you know what looks to be more of a reality and what looks to be more of model fiction. There's your teaser. Here we go. First off, as we head into the stats, 3.7 are total so far this year. 1.9 is where we should be, so we're still ahead of the game, and hopefully that makes snow lovers happy that at least we're ahead of the game still. All right, on the board for looking ahead. Christmas Eve, I'm keeping it on there. I don't know if it's even worth half a Twix bar of a scale of 0 to 10, but it's Christmas Eve. I can't take it off. Saturday night into Sunday, I'll explain more about that setup. That is an interesting one, but there's a lot of caution with that one, just like we saw with the previous weekend. And then on the New Year's Eve system, it's not really on the maps yet, but I do think it'll show up on the map soon because the pattern would fit some type of low pressure developing at that time, and I'll explain on that as well. Now, looking at the radar tonight, it's not snow, it's rain, even some thunder breaking out. We've risen out to the lower 50s in Louisville. Look at the rain moving through, some pockets of moderate rain, and yeah, some lightning showing up. Not far from Bowling Green, and even more lightning strikes taking place on the west side of Bowling Green. So with Litchfield, E-Town, Bardstown, especially, and into Campbellsville, you guys are going to hear some lightning and thunder, or you're going to see some lightning, you're going to hear some thunder later on for tonight. Look how active the country is, though. We got a lot going on across the lower 48. Let me switch to the satellite image so you can at least see everything moving a little better. We've got area of low pressure to the north, and we've got energy diving down across the Rockies. Blizzard conditions, in fact, here. This is going to form a low. You already see the clouds developing here. This is going to be area of low pressure. It's going to develop and then track due north into the Ohio Valley as we head into Tuesday and Christmas Eve day. It will then meet up with the low pressure now in Minnesota. It's going to move over here by this point. So when this low moves out of the south, they're both going to meet up and become one big low. Now, it's not going to be a bomb low. You know, the meteorologists, we're all of us were really posting about this potential for a super bomb storm for Christmas. Well, the two colliding are not going to be as dramatic as what was first thought. So that helps on easing the wind speed somewhat and eases on the chance for the snow potential. But it just goes to show you how things change fast this time of year. So, as always the case, we talk about things in the future, but man, they don't always pan out exactly the way they look, especially when it comes to specifics. All right, so here's the 500 millibar level of the GFS. You see the low pressure energy developing, or what we call a vortmax, as we get into Wednesday morning. It'll track right into Kentucky. Now, here it is on the GFS surface map, and you can see the area of low pressure itself right over Louisville. That red line is usually the very warm air line that we use in the spring a lot to determine severe weather potential, and there could be some strong storms east of that red line. But also notice the blue line. That is your typical rain-snow line. That is west of us. That is where your better chance will be to see that go to snow, and a decent amount of snow too. But notice the gap between the red and the blue line. That is the gap we're going to spend most of our Christmas Eve evening in. It's colder air, but it's not cold enough to snow. It's marginal air, if you will. The cold air to get snowflakes is still going to lag behind that low, and by the time it gets here, well, there may not be much left to work with. Temperature-wise, another big story here. I mean, as we get into the low pressure tracking through the state, I mean, the eastern part of the viewing area, quite warm potentially. 60s, maybe some 70s, and then it drops off quick once you head westbound. Here's that marginal air to our west, and then the cold air for snowmaking even further to the west. But keep in mind, the slow pressure track is crucial on temperature. If it goes more to the west and tracks towards Chicago, then these 60s and 70s got to push them back to the west more. Consequently, if it goes more to the east, the warmer air will be stuck in this area, and then the colder air has a better chance to move in faster Christmas Eve night. Now, the only way you're going to get a low pressure, you're going to go east. It's got to be a weaker low, and the NAM is hinting at that. Although I think I got a feeling it's going to trend more toward a stronger low. A stronger low will go more north than east, and that's what the other models are showing, and I think it's a better bet. It's not going to be a terribly strong low, but strong enough that it should track more north than east. But even in Kentuckiana, in our counties, a deviation of 100 miles on the track will determine our temperatures that day and potentially any type of early impact for rain to snow showers. So it's not set in stone yet how this will play out. That's early guess is how things are going to look. Very changeable day at Christmas Eve from warm to chilly air, and then that really cold air moves in after that. And because, as I mentioned, just as it gets cold enough to produce snowflakes, we don't have a lot of moisture. Just a little bit of moisture off the Great Lakes here we're able to feed off of. But ground temperatures are warm enough that a lot of it's going to melt when it touches the ground. A couple snow squalls may develop. If it happens before sunrise, it may turn the rooftops and car tops briefly white, but it's got to come down pretty good for that to happen, and it's got to happen before sunrise, because once the sun comes up on Christmas Day, the chances of anything sticking gets reduced quite a bit. Here's the sounding, by the way, of that same system. This is the GFS. Here's the ground. Here's the air above. We are saturated to the point where we can get some, perhaps a few snowflakes to develop, but we warm up above freezing at the surface level, so a lot of those flakes would melt either right before they hit the ground or as soon as they touch anything, they would melt on contact. But notice the dry air aloft, so there's not a lot of moisture. This is not a very saturated atmosphere at all. These lines are far apart, so it tells us that it's going to be a very light snow event, but we'll keep an eye on it. The other side of this is going to be the wind. It's going to be windy tonight. You know, these showers and storms moving in from the south, the winds will pick up somewhat tonight. They'll calm down tomorrow, but then look what happens as we get into Christmas Eve day. We'll start off in the morning with that low pressure approaching us from the south. Winds kick up, gusting at times into the 30s, and by the afternoon hours, Christmas Eve day, gusts potentially in the 40s, and even showing Seymour at 50 miles per hour. So very windy as we transition from this warm air to the chilly air, and then even the west winds on Christmas Day will be a little gusty at times, but nothing like we'll see on Christmas Eve. So then after that, it moves by. It moves into Canada. We start to see more of a ridging that will try to develop as our next system is already digging into areas of the northwest, and it's going to dive to the south and east. Now, how this develops is going to be interesting because we do have an impulse moving through. This is very similar to what we just went through last weekend. And remember, the issue was the cold air moving in. At the same time, we have energy moving in from the south, and whether or not the two will be able to phase into a storm system to produce snow. If this system to the south misses the ride and the cold air is already passed by that point, it's a sheared out system. Very little, if anything, would fall. If they meet up, then it's a little more of a dynamic system. And once again, we're facing our situation where that is what we got to watch for. And we don't have enough data to say either way. That's why I have the forecast is just rain or snow. GFS, the latest run, is hinting more at something happening here, a little more phasing. The 12Z run had all the rain right here, and that's it. And then the 18Z, it's shifted it to the north. I know the 18Z model is not a great model to go by, but it at least there has been a shift. We'll see if that continues in the 0Z data, which comes in about an hour. Here is the Canadian. It again is shifting to where an area of low pressure is going to be meeting up at the same time we have enough cold air. It's going to make things interesting right along that boundary, wherever that sets up. And the Euro, as the case with the last system, is the most dramatic, with a more organized phase low pressure system that produces accumulating snow on the backside. And again, this will be this weekend, Saturday night into Sunday. I'll issue my disclaimers now so that I'm not misunderstood this time. This is a questionable event because it's all about the idea of the northern branch and the southern branch features matching. And at this point, if they match, yeah, it's something to watch. If they don't match, then this system will be nothing to get excited about. So that's why we're going to keep it as just rain or snow for right now, and we'll worry about it later. Now, as far as the longer term, to New Year's Eve, lots of cold air at play. Still got a cross-polar flow developing here. This is the Canadian. It's so overwhelming with the cold air. There's not much you can get as far as precipitation on the southern side of this. But there is a system I do think that will develop in the southern branch. At the same time, we have cold air at play. It's just a matter of, again, the two are going to meet up. And I think the potential is there for New Year's Eve into New Year's Day. But that's all I can say on it right now. So, big stories. It's going to be the wind, thunderstorms in places, and the crashing temperatures, the snow part. Just not that exciting for Christmas Eve night, but hopefully we can get some snow showers falling in the air at least. When you wake up, you might see some snowflakes, wouldn't it, outside? A dusting would be even better. Accumulating snow would be even better than that, but a dusting, very light snow, I think everybody would be happy with that at this point. Even the snow lovers, I think you guys would be happy with that. But as far as the weekend goes, that's going to be our next thing I'm going to be dissecting in the coming days. But with so much going on in the short term, I just can't give more attention to it than we already have. So there you have it. That's what our thought process is right now for the next couple of weeks, all the way through the beginning of 2015. I'll see you tonight at 11.